Now then, landmark ruling today from the FA who want to change the whole structure of youth football. At the moment, as you may or may not be aware, depending if you've got kids, I guess, once they go from under 11s where they play 7-a-side or up to that age, it's then a big jump up to 11-a-side on a full-size pitch. The FA want to get away with all that, so they're going to introduce 9-a-side football for 11 and 12-year-olds on a smaller pitch with smaller goals, and after that they go up to 11-a-side, although they do have the option to continue with 9-a-side football right through to the age of 16. Flash, I know you've had some experience coaching kids. What do you make of the theory of the FA? Right, smaller pitches, fewer players on each side.
No, first of all, we play 11-a-side game when the boys get older, so I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to obviously compact it, get more touches, but I just really don't understand it. I mean, two places or two positions, or natural positions, are going to become redundant. So I don't understand how I'm going to be able to say to a kid, you go and play at right back or you go and play at left back, because all of a sudden the 4-2-2, 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 or any of them formations that will come along later in life, that they've not been bred into them. So, and I know that the football clubs, the academies and all that, they don't play 7 or 9-a-side, they play 11. And I can only talk about Southampton. We've produced probably 25 players who are now playing in the top 2 divisions out of the academies in the last 10 years.
Interesting.
Show me the problem.
Yeah, well, we're going to speak to the FA in a minute. Before we do that, John, what's your gut reaction to this ruling from the FA?
Well, I can see where they're trying to. I mean, it's the emphasis on technique and also the importance of trying to play and not be so interested in the result at this stage. And I can see where they're going with this, but I do feel that sometimes I think we put over importance on our technical flaws. I mean, you know, it amuses me that sort of Torres, who's in the great Spain team, is one of the most one-footed players you're ever likely to see.
It's a good one-foot though.
Yeah, absolutely. we have produced some good players like Will Shear, like Oxlade-Chamberlain. They're coming through, you know, Josh McKechnie.
The list is endless. See, this is what I'm saying. Yeah. John's now going to say, we have produced, and then in an hour's time he'll still be saying, and we have produced. And yet it's only because we haven't put silverware. If we'd have won the World Cup, say 4 years ago or 8 years ago, this wouldn't even have come to light. It's only because they're saying that we do not produce players. Well, we do. Full stop. The biggest league in the world, the most popular league in the world, is littered with English players.
All right, well, let's get the FA's viewpoint on it, and then you two can have a Barney if necessary. Les Howie is with us. He's the head of Grassroots coaching at the FA. Les, thanks for joining us. Good evening to you.
Yeah, good evening.
Could you just explain to our viewers and to Flash as well in the studio exactly why the FA has come to this conclusion that 9-a-side football for 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds is a good thing and will help them become better players?
Well, I think straight away, it's the smaller size, the smaller goals. It means that children will be more involved in the game. One of your colleagues in the studio said there about more touches of the ball, but it's not even the more touches. It's about thinking about the position your colleague was talking about. How often when you move a 10-year-old to a full-size pitch do we see an overlap, a support play, or moving through the units? We don't see it very much because really it's just too tiring, too physical to get back. So we spend all our time at 7v7 talking about working as units, talking about how we play the game, and then we move them onto a massive pitch that we expect adults. Just pick up 2 points from your colleague said. One, academies have been playing 8v8 up to under 12 for a long, long time now. And two, we talk about the number of players in the Premier League. Last Premiership weekend there, only 35% were eligible to play for England. So maybe we do have to look at one or two things and try things differently sometimes.
Yeah, Les, I'd like to say that you can manipulate the stats how you like, but the 35% on the last day, that tells you like English players, but it doesn't tell you the players that are actually being brought in to the academies by the English clubs. Why don't we stop clubs bringing in foreign players at the age of 15, 16 and things like that?
Well, there's actually a legal requirement there as part of the European Union, and we're actually part of the same legal framework. Football's no different than any other employer. The big thing about what we're talking about here within grassroots football, we've been out, we've consulted with the leagues, we've consulted with coaches, we've actually been talking to young people about what do they want out of the game. what do they think the game should look like. And the overwhelming majority of those we've been out with, there's been 138 of these roadshows around the country, is support around the 9v9 game. It's seen as a transition, a period of development to bring the players through and to keep their involvement in the game. It's great if one or two then go off and join academies, come through to represent the country, but actually this for us is about giving people the appropriate introduction to the game.
And this 9-on-9 model, is this based on something that's proved successful in other countries?
A number of other countries have tried it. I think it's fair to say that we're actually one of the youngest age groups that move to 11-a-side currently. There's not many move to 11-a-side at the age we do, a 10-year-old. Most of them go later on, 12, 13, 14, because there's that recognition. It helps with, it links to what we're trying to do with our coaching philosophy about how the game should be played, what it should look like, decision-making of the players, and more appropriate to the needs of the children.
Les, I was just going to ask you really, am I right in thinking that you're taking also away the emphasis on the need to win and the sort of the kind of, I don't know, the importance of scoreline? I just wonder whether you could sort of explain the thinking behind that.
One of the moves in there is that, well, at the minute you start off in the league from the age of 8-year-old, that'll start in September, finish in May. Massive long slog. If you think actually about the almost percentage of that child's life, it's a bit like having a 4-year Premier League. Even I think the best fan in the world might get a bit bored of something that lasts 4 years. So you have to look at the needs of the child. There will still be elements of competition within there, but we're talking blocks of work. We're talking about, rather than having divisions that are made up of 12 teams, what we're having some divisions made up of 5 or 6 teams, promotion and relegation maybe during the season. So actually the divisions become very tight on standard. So a team will win 2-1, get beat 3-2, and we'll get rid of some of these 15-0s, because a 15-0 doesn't do the team that's won 15-0 any good, or the team that's got beat 15-0 any good.
See, I beg to differ there, Les. I beg to differ, because I think the mental strength, I coach the young kids myself, and first of all, let me just go back, because in Southampton, we don't have any score lines for under 8s, I don't think, or under 9s.
Good. No, you shouldn't. Well, under 8s and 7s, you're not allowed to now. So
yeah, on what grounds though? Because we want to teach people to be able to have winners, and when you're 1 or 2-0 down, you see a bit of fight, and they want to get back and they want to win, and this is the bit I can't really understand. Well, I understand what you're trying to do, and I applaud you for trying to make that gap between 7-a-side and 11-a-side, because I coach a side and they got to a cup final under 11s and they played on Tottenham's pitch, which is a men's pitch, in the final, which was a joke. And then we played at another ground, which is a men's pitch, in Basingstoke, which again was an absolute joke. So I understand what you're trying to do, and there is a need for it. But I think the competitive side of winning and losing, having a scoreline, is imperative.
Look, no one's saying they shouldn't have a scoreline. No one's saying they shouldn't be competitive. I think we've got to be careful what we mean. The minute you have a game of football, it's competitive, yeah, and that's not a problem with that. But you know and I know, when we're talking about 8 and 9-year-old kids, they've often forgot about the score. They've moved on to, can they go to McDonald's on the way home? Oh, who's partying at tonight? Dad will still tell you, if only they'd had a corner in the 17th minute back in September, they would have won the league. They'll know every single detail. So that 40 minutes, that hour those kids play that weekend, that should be the most competitive time to play. That's not a problem. It's not about, but actually what is competition sometimes, yeah? It's about making the competition realistic. You could also argue, we've got situations at the moment, and I've run teams for a long time, but if you have a bad start of the season, you're then out your county cup and out your league cup, and you could see your season's over by the second weekend in October. What we're talking about is these little pockets. When you've developed your players as coaches and you've seen them get better, there's ways then something else to go for is a challenge later on in the season. So no one's saying it shouldn't be non-competitive. We're saying actually let's make competition relative to where children are today. A lot of our children now will be playing a full season on their Xbox tonight. Yeah.
Are you convinced, Les, that we do have the young talent in this country? Because I'm nearly 50, and the only tournament that any England team's ever won of any significance was obviously in '66. I was in nappies. Spain are the current world champions, the current European champions, the under-21 European champions. What are they doing so right that we're obviously not?
Right, I think a couple of things. I'm probably a couple of years younger than you, but I was 1 the last time we won the World Cup, and that's actually maybe the message. Sometimes you have to do things differently to achieve something, yeah? And I think actually the good news is the last fundamental changes in youth football was the Charter for Quality Howard Wilkinson introduced back in 1998-99. That's so many soccer introduced it, so the first academies. The first generation really has just started to come through that in the last 3 or 4 years. and actually you start looking at the results of players coming through the academy system. You start looking at the results of our development squads at the UEFA Championships, and we are consistently challenging and meeting the latter stages. I think it's something like the last 2 years we've lost 1 game to Spain. Now that shouldn't necessarily be the test on that, but what I'm saying is we are competing at the highest level in our youth teams and our development squads. It's important that we don't think it's all negative. There's lots of good players coming through from them changes. What we're trying to do now is say, look, was it right? Is the time to change? Anything you do, you're always looking to improve. It's been 15 years since the last major changes. We now think, having done the consultation, the time's right to bring in these changes to just help us give it that little bit extra and help us in the future.
Leslie, it's a fascinating subject. We've got to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight.
No problem. Thank you. Good night.
Cheers, Les. Good luck.
Thank you.
Stay ahead of the game with Sports Tonight Live. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search for Sports Tonight Live on Facebook and like our fan page. Follow Sports Tonight TV on Twitter and tweet us your thoughts and opinions. Sports Tonight Live, it's the platform for the fans.